Lads, let's just start off with derbies, because of course it's Manchester United and Manchester City this weekend. Johnny, you said you were at the Milan derby recently. What was the experience like?
Yeah, I got the iconic kind of treble in the Dublin, Belfast and Milan derbies in the space of a couple of weeks. Went to Dalymount, the Oval, and then the San Siro. So I suppose the Dublin game was Rovers and Pats, which was quite pleasant in Inchicore. And then I went up to Belfast for the traditional kind of what they would call the two Protestant clubs, quote unquote, even though I'd object a bit to that term, but the two of the big clubs really in Belfast. But it was interesting being at the Oval because it's so old, and I think it may have even been bombed during the war, and it looks like they didn't really do it up all that much because it's just so old. But it has that, it's the Oval, and it has that oval kind of shape, and it just feels like an old football ground. And it was a Monday night, I think there were like 4,500 at it, and it was a good atmosphere, and it felt like the Irish League's isn't in a great way, but it kind of felt like a throwback to the old days when it was. And then I went to the San Siro. What was interesting in San Siro was the price of the tickets, because not that long ago, you know, you could go to these games for 20-25 quid. It was 75 quid for a ticket. Now it was sold out, but it didn't have that. The Milan derby doesn't have that intensity because there were Milan fans sitting beside Inter fans, a bit like a Gaelic Games game in Croke Park. It didn't have that kind of hatred that you would get in other places. So
that surprised me.
Yeah, that surprised me.
I think Juve now playing either of those sides would be a slightly different story. Juve would be hated by both teams, and in fact, my friend over there, he's from Dublin, but he's dating a girl from Italy, and he was telling me about her mother, how she's an Inter fan, but she absolutely hates Juve. The passion that they hate Juve. So when Juve are coming over shortly to play Milan, and that's different. But the Milan derby is a lot more cordial. You know, the Milan fans had their section. It was an Inter home game nominally, but there were Milan fans kind of peppered all over the ground.
Because they're feeling a bit sorry for each other these days. The lack of success over the past years.
Maybe in the mid-90s it might not have been that way when they were really successful. These clubs, AC Milan were, you know, just off the back of winning European Cups. Inter Milan, I think it was a Trapattoni, or winning UEFA Cups. Kenny, did Millwall have a rival when you were?
How have we gone from Millwall from the San Siro? Have you been down to Millwall at West Ham?
The Den.
The Millwall was a West Ham
game. You haven't?
No.
Oh, there you go. There's one for you.
It is
potentially going forward.
What was
you won't see too many supporters mingling.
Birmingham Villa was
side by side of that game.
Well, as a Galway United fan, what disappoints me is we don't have a derby game really. We kind of let on that Sligo are our derby rivals, but we don't have one. But I've been to Istanbul, and
did you do Fenerbahce Galatasaray?
No. If I did, I probably wouldn't be here today because that's so intense. Like, it's insane, and you know, you wouldn't know what happened. I've been to a game in Istanbul, and it was a friendly game between Galatasaray and Fiorentina, and the Galatasaray stadium has recorded the loudest noise ever created in a stadium, and it was in 2011. Galatasaray were playing Fenerbahce, and I've never experienced anything like Turkey. I thought it was absolutely insane, and I'd love to go to a derby game there. That would be my main ambition in terms of a derby game.
South America for me in terms of
Super Classico, Boca Juniors and River Plate. That is the game of the world that everybody should go to. I haven't been, but I just know the Bombonera, the chocolate box in Buenos Aires. That is the game.
I can see Johnny doing a little podcast from there, or sending a few pictures back to the studio.
What was the most intense match you played in, Kenny?
You played in Iran, didn't you?
You played in Iran, did you?
Yeah, I was over for the Iran game. Yeah, I suppose it was to an extent. It was a lively atmosphere. Yeah, there was always the flares going off. There was a few bits, a few exploding voices came onto the pitch prior to the game and the warm-up and things like that.
You had the images of the two Ayatollahs kind of on the... I love that in these kind of dictatorships in countries like that, where they put the portraits of the leaders up in the actual ground. Like North Korea would be an example, and I'm pretty sure
would it be Trump in 3 years' time in the States?
Possibly will. But that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
I think it can be overplayed, though. I've got to be honest with you.
You've got to enjoy that, though.
No, exactly. The intimidating atmosphere. Now people talk about Turkey. You know, the draw is made. You get a Turkish team, Fenerbahce in your group. Oh, it won't be easy. Won't be easy going to Turkey. The atmosphere there.
But if you score and you silence them, isn't that half the battle as well?
Yeah, exactly. But players, as Johnny alluded to there, players love it. They revel in it. If anything, it brings more. I think in some respects, it brings more pressure on the home team, to be honest with you. There's an argument to be made for that. The expectancy level rises for the home team. So as an away player, and players now are so experienced at that level, international football and European, they're used to it. Actually brings more out of them, I think, being the away team going to those kind of venues.
But do you remember the most intense atmosphere you played in as a club player, Kenny?
You're not letting this go, He's not letting
Come on, Kenny.
Not letting it go,
well.
Well, I suppose it'd only be there. I suppose derbies predominantly. I would have played Millwall. I just mentioned there West Ham. They would have been great games to play in. Fantastic. You're talking about supporters now. The Millwall West Ham, there'd be a huge rivalry there. People say borderline kind of hatred, kicked off a few times and all of that. But the actual support base from both clubs, the people, they're very same part of London. Traditionally, Millwall came out of East London anyway. A lot of those families, East End families, would be split Millwall, West Ham anyway. So in terms of that kind of real kind of working class East End background, those supporters are they're the same people. You go into a pub, you talk, you wouldn't know who was West Ham. The very same attributes. You know, they come from the same place. But in terms of their loyalties to the football club, it's, you know, both ends of the spectrum. So that was great. That lended itself to a great atmosphere. And it didn't need 60,000. I remember playing the old Coblow Lane. You're not going to, unfortunately, not going to experience that. Millwall's old Coblow Lane.
Yeah, I've been at the new den, but I haven't been at the old one.
You get 12, 15,000 in there, Millwall, West Ham, and that was allowed. Played a derby game in there. It was absolutely electric. You're talking about Sterling taking a bit of a dive. Took a bit of a dive myself there.
Oh no! Here we go.
VAR. Exactly. Alvin Martin. He left his leg there. He left his leg. The old classic. He left his leg. I was entitled.
Was it a foul? If you
Alvin
go down,
he was 43 years of age at that stage. He dangled the leg, and I was a bit out of my comfort zone in the opposition penalty box. I took the opportunity to go over and won a penalty kick. Got a penalty kick. Yeah.
Do you still feel bad about it?
Never felt bad about it. In all honesty,
first revelation of that.
It could be. Yeah, but I would say leg was offered. The leg was offered. And
I don't know. My view on Kenny has altered.
In terms of atmosphere, that was great. And then I would say my first game at Birmingham, Aston Villa. Birmingham, the club had just come back up into the top flight. First game was played at Aston Villa, evening kick-off. That was pretty electric, very, you know, contentious-ish. A couple of sending out, Dion Double got sent off, throwing the head at Robbie Savage, all of that type of thing, and it was brilliant. We had to stay in the ground for a while after we couldn't go out. It was all going off around the ground. We had to sit in the dressing room for a period of time. We just soak it up, and that was a great feeling. I remember that one in particular, actually. That meant a lot to supporters.
Like, a lot of these things, they don't really have any like actual meaning anymore, in the sense of like what's different between Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians, or what's the difference between Manchester City and Manchester United. But if you go into like kind of post-war zone areas, like, can you imagine like the Kosovo national team taking on like Serbia or something like that? You know, can you imagine the passion that it's just the raw kind of feeling of what went on in those countries in war situations in recent years? That's when it really matters, and you can actually feel there's a visceral hatred here. But there's still great occasions, just the actual derby games, and particularly in the grounds where the old grounds where people are standing and they're really getting going, rather than now the modern grounds today, which have probably changed things.
Well, just some comments in here from people on YouTube and on our social channels. Kevin Kilban 2007 on YouTube. Now, this is not the real Kevin Kilban. This is another Kevin Kilban. The best stadium was Vicente Calderon. Dara on YouTube, the old Lansdowne Road, of course, Kenny would have played in, was class. David on YouTube, the Camp Nou, and yes, I've been there during games when it's full. It's mind-blowing. Patrick on YouTube, best stadium ever, Plough Lane. I think you must have played there, Kenny. Did you?
Oh, played reserve team game there. Funny enough, it was just in the process of being dismantled. That would have been the old,
I think Wimbledon,
the old Wimbledon. Yeah, potentially going to build a new stadium on the site, which would be great. The club really going back into it. The dogs,
there's no dog track in London anymore.
Just on bucket list sporting events briefly, because I think this is kind of tied to, you know, the events you want to go and see. For me, I think it would be the Super Classico would be an absolute one. The Masters and the Super Bowl. Would be there anything in the top two or three of you that you love to go and see that you haven't been to?
Oh, sporting occasions. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ryder Cup. I wouldn't go to a Ryder Cup. I love the Ryder Cup. Absolutely. I love it, but I can't bear it. Tension. But that's because I'm on my sofa watching on the telly. I don't think... I remember going to a Carol's Irish Open once, Pope Marnock, and being little bit of a letdown, just in terms of, you know, trying to get a bit of eye line, you know, racing down, fighting the crowds, constantly aggravation in terms of seeing a shot. Much preferred it as a viewing spectacle on my sofa watching the golf. But big sporting events, probably those classic. The South American, the top South American game. You mentioned River Plate and
Boca Juniors.
Boca Juniors, like, yeah. I think that would maybe stand alone. Big rugby occasion, even, to be honest with you. I mean, if Ireland were to progress World Cup next year,
you'd be back out in the Far East, Kenny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all those bittersweet memories. Yeah. But I think, even something like, particularly from an Irish perspective, like I said, something just part of the occasion. I'm not a big one for. I've never generally wanted to go out of my comfort zone, to be honest. But yeah, Oh no, what about you?
I'd like to see North Korea play in Pyongyang. I think that would be absolutely insane because they're on a different level altogether. They're basically completely indoctrinated and there's soldiers all over the stadium. That would be incredible. I'd like to see PAOK Thessalonica, the Greek team. I'd love to see them play. I've never seen fans like them. Probably play against AK Athens maybe. And thirdly, I'd like to see the Jets and the Giants play in the Super Bowl because I've a bit of a fondness for a lot of cousins in New York and I've been to see both teams, and I'd like to see Galway United play anyone in Europe. Would be nice as well.